Blog Talk Radio.
Hey guys, it's Those Guys with your host Matt Marrero along with the other host,
John.
It's John. Now John, people should know who John is. If you don't know who John is, John has appeared on our Those Guys Play channel. You can't say what games you've played yet, John, because, well, one of them you and I played last season of Those Guys Play. We played Secret of Mana. And then
Yes.
Don't talk about which one we just played because that might not be out as of this recording or as of this release.
No spoilers.
No spoilers.
I know.
But you are appearing on this next season of Those Guys Play. It's specifically Season 5. And this is a podcast that you and I have been trying to record literally – actually, not trying to. We recorded, and then because of a PC hard drive failure, it's gone. And so you and I were then trying to set up the next recording for a year. We have
what
been
a long,
trying
strange trip it's been.
It really has. So we've been trying to talk about the first, literally just the pilot episode of, which was a two-parter, of Star Trek. I was about to say Star Trek PNG. That's funny. It's just one picture. They're just focusing on a picture for like the whole fucking series. Star Trek TNG, The Next Generation. We're going to talk about this, and also because John is a little bit of an older fella, you watched this when it first came out. Am I wrong?
Now, to be fair, I did watch it. I don't think I understood it because I was 3. And you know, if you were to get 1987 John's take on the episode, he would ask things like, "Why does that man have a banana clip on his face? What is with that dude's funny hat?" And more importantly, where the hell are my G.I. Joes?
Right. Well, you know, those are just 3-year-old John with the pertinent facts.
Exactly.
Just
even back then, I cut right to it. You know.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on TNG? Where are my G.I. Joes? Get this man a job on television. All right. So, you have the voice for radio, though. I'll say that much. So.
And a face for it too.
How dare you? So you were 3 at the time. However, you have a much larger love of Star Trek than I do. So you've seen this series more times, or at least know facts about it more than I do. So can you talk to me about at least what it seemed to be the general, the fervor, the feelings, the hype surrounding when this show first came out? We're talking about, of course, TNG, because, you know, my dad and I, we watched TOS. We watched the original series when I was a kid. So I'm not saying I know every episode from memory, but, like, I definitely can go, oh, yeah, that one. But this is not one that my dad, who grew up on Star Trek, the original series, when he was a kid, so that's why he showed it to me, he didn't really show me this. And I don't know if he thought, like, I wouldn't get it because it's a bit different than TOS. I don't know what he thought, or because, again, it wasn't part of his childhood. But I'm wondering
or he's been a Kirk man.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that might be the case as well, because, again, he grew up with Kirk. So my question is, was it, like, was there a lot of hype surrounding this? Was it hype in the media, but the fandom wasn't as interested because it wasn't Kirk? Like, what was going on at the time?
Now, said full disclosure, I said I wasn't really, my finger wasn't on the pulse when it first came out because I was a very little kid, and I didn't really seek out the episodes and watch the series until I was a teenager, and then my parents had some of the videotapes lying around the house, so I would look into them and then kind of got hooked that way, and I really got hooked when the movie First Contact came out. Was really the one that sold me on it. So, but as far as the overall attitude. Back when the show was first released, as I understand it, having read in retrospect and seen some of the newspaper clippings and TV guide clippings from the day, is that it was kind of mixed emotions. It seemed like people were excited to see Star Trek on TV again after, I think it would have been something like 15, 16 years. I think it was 1969 was when TOS went off, stopped making new episodes.
Yeah.
So I probably got my math wrong, but yeah. So it was back on TV for the first time in a while. There were people that were skeptical because it wasn't there weren't any original series cast members, and I know the prevailing attitude with a lot of people was, how are you going to have Star Trek without Kirk and Spock? That just doesn't track. So there was a little bit of probably resistance in that regard, but that just kind of goes to show that for every series that comes out. As we're experiencing now with Discovery, is there's always going to be haters have existed since long before the internet. When original series came out, people were like, "What is this Twilight Zone crap?" This is, when Next Gen came out, oh, how can you have Star Trek without Kirk and Spock? When DS9 came out, oh, they're boldly going nowhere. They're on a space station. And Voyager came out and was like, oh, what is it, Lost in Space, or Gilligan's Island in space?
Mm.
So it's and Enterprise, I think people there was just angry noises, but
well, yeah, and I have to say though, I think that's something that it's not just about Star Trek. So this is, even though we're talking about TNG here, of course I'm going to bring up something else that I know. So sorry if there's anyone who's very anti Star Wars and you're super into Star Trek. I apologize, but I want to bring up Star Wars for one reason. Every time there's a new set of movies, there are people who are discussing why heck, there are people now, John. How crazy is it? I swear to God this is happening, John. There are people that are now saying, my God, 7, 8, and probably 9 are such trash, or going to be such trash, I want to see 1, 2, and 3 again.
I never thought I'd see the day.
I never fucking thought I'd see the day. And honestly, I don't think they're bad enough to actually try to bring 1, 2, and 3 back from, not from the dead. They still exist in canon. But still, I don't think that about 7, 8 so far. Like, they're that bad, quote unquote. That, oh God, 1, 2, and 3 are great in comparison. No, but what I'm saying though is, John, is that again, just like what you're saying with TNG at the time, and now of course with Discovery, every time there's a new Trek, it seems as if it is met with some hesitance at least, and then. Now, I don't know about you, John, but I hear everyone talking about how great TNG is. Of course, there are some issues, just like every Trek has some issues.
Oh yeah.
But I don't hear I don't hear someone saying, "Man, TNG, Picard was the only thing that saved it." Like, no, that's what I don't hear that.
Yeah. The only people that I really see saying they didn't like TNG are people on the shitposting groups trying to get a rise out of somebody. But yeah, so TNG, while definitely not perfect, it has, it's become beloved. It's kind of, I would probably say with TOS as its only possible competition, because it's, that was the beginning of it all. It's probably the most popular and most well loved of the Trek series. Like you said, you don't hear a lot of people. They may make fun of it, and they make fun of how Beverly Crusher had sex with a ghost and things like that. But it's beloved. It's beloved.
Right.
It's beloved.
Yeah. So I don't know anything about that just yet, but we'll get to that later. We'll get to it in another episode, I guess. I don't know if that's considered spoilers or not. I don't know anything. What I do know is this. What I do know is nobody likes. Speaking of the Crushers, nobody likes Wesley. And I don't understand why. Now, hear me out. I know we're just talking about the first episode, so I don't want any, anti-Wesley spoilers. No, Matt, you don't understand. The whole Enterprise exploded.
Wesley becomes God.
Yeah, right? Wesley, Q inhabits the body of Wesley.
Wesley was the Next Generation the whole time.
Oh God! If they could you imagine just at the last episode, there's just an older actor fucking playing Wesley's character, and I realized at that point I was the Next Generation the whole time.
And the real Next Generation were the friends I made along the way.
But here's the thing, right?
To your point, you said that you don't fully get the Wesley hate.
Yeah, and the reason why is because of the fact that, look, I'm not saying that he isn't a little shit. I totally get it. But I guess I'm the type of person, maybe it's because I like pro wrestling, so when I watch a WWE product, and I'm not saying this doesn't happen with other pro wrestling as well, but I'm just referring to WWE in this case. When I watch it and someone says something offensive, or something that I don't like, I'll understand that it is coming from them, the character, but I also will go, why did someone in the back give them a script that had them say that? Right?
Why did you make them say those words with their own two lips?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to get here is, I'm not going to sit here and be like, Wesley sucks, I hate Will Wheaton. It's like, what? The kid's what is the kid like? At the time, Wheaton was 12? 13?
13, 14
That's
at
what
most.
I'm saying. What? How can I hate the person behind it, or even hate the character as much as I can go, why did they write him to be a little shit?
Well, not to speaking of hate the player, not the game, as far as the that goes. That's also what a big thing with the Star Wars fandom was, like, not being able to separate the character that they dislike from the actor, to the point of what was it?
Yeah.
It was the young woman who played Rose was bullied right off social media. Ahmed Best, who played Jar Jar.
I thought you were referring to Little, because within that case, I think that's different. For me, I'm like, because at least with that case, it's like, it's because I think some people definitely are like, oh, I don't like that her character's developed. But in other cases, I'm like, no, that's like racist and sexist. Like,
there's other things in play there that could fill an entire other podcast.
Right. I thought you were going to refer to young Anakin, who people look at that guy still, and they're like, this is pod racing. And he's like, I want to live my life.
Well, they bullied him into basically quitting films.
So, fuck them. But it wasn't due to any kind of, like, sexist, racist. Like, that was just people being horrible in other ways. Horrible still, but in other ways. I thought you were referring to that, because that's the first one that I always think of.
Definitely that too.
Yeah. But anyway, look, I'm not saying people can't be, people will be terrible, and that's a terrible thing, and I get that, sadly, that does happen. I'm just saying in general, though, like, I don't understand the hate, because we all sit back and look, we love the show, we try to get, you have to try to have suspension of disbelief, we try to get sucked in, but we know that it's a television show. Like, no one is. Granted, look, I would love to talk to. Oh God, why am I blanking on his beautiful, beautiful name? Picard. Why am I blanking on the actor's name?
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart. Fucking love Patrick Stewart. I would love to talk to Patrick Stewart as if he's Picard. Don't get me wrong, but he's not Picard. Like, we all know that he's not Picard. He's Professor X.
Exactly.
Yes,
and
we know that.
He's not Professor X. He's actually what was it? He's actually Jeffrey.
Fuck! I knew you were gonna fucking say Jeffrey. No, he's not Jeffrey. He's in the movie Jeffrey.
He's the guy from Sexy Cakes, the SNL sketch. Here's the thing. I do think I absolutely think that the Wesley hate is overblown. A lot of it probably comes from, and you're going to experience this as you delve into the early parts of the first season, is that when Wesley was originally conceived, he was a glorified self-insertion character for Gene Roddenberry.
Wait a minute. So you're telling me that they have a flashback where his mom and his dad are like doing it, and they're like, this is basically for Gene Roddenberry. Because you said when he was conceived.
Yes. When he was yes, so when Jack and Beverly got it on, that was what was happening. Oh God!
Could you imagine if his name? Could you imagine if his name was Gene? You think that would have been too on the nose?
I think so. No, they would have called him Gene Robbleberry.
But anyway, Robblebenny. But no, but seriously though, you're telling me some serious behind the scenes stuff. He was conceived to be like Gene explain that.
Well, what that was that, and not officially, like it wasn't like they said, okay, this character is going to be me or this character is going to be Gene, but it's very clear that Gene Roddenberry was using him as a sort of wish fulfillment stand-in character, like and things like, and also he's brilliant and but doesn't have much of a social life and kind of awkward and nerdy, and the list goes on. So, and they also made him insufferably precocious in the early first season, and trust me, you'll get there and you'll know it when you see it. But basically, he was showing up he showed on a lot. People felt that he showed up the senior staff on too many occasions. That you got trained professionals that went through the academy that can't figure a problem out, but Wesley can do it in 2 seconds. So that didn't endear him to the fans.
Yeah, no, and that's terrible. But to me, I'm like, that's not on the kid's character. That's on who the fuck put that pen to paper.
That's the writers. Yeah, that's the writers.
Yeah.
And Will Wheaton actually had a blog for a little while where he would do reviews that kind of were peppered in with some memories of being on set.
Oh.
And they treated him like, the writers, a lot of them treated him like garbage. The cast the cast were great. But the directors and the writers treated him like crap, and one of them would lead him around the set by his elbow, not realizing he's an adult that can take, I mean, he's a kid, but you can take direction.
Well,
but
yeah,
there was,
because
and I'll
it's very weird. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's very odd because they like when you make someone a super whiz kid, they have to actually be a kid. And his character to me, I'm not saying that he's not a child, but he seems to already be a teenager. Like, it's weird. Like, in other words, if you're like, this is super whiz kid, he has to be like 8 to 10, you know? Like, because it's hard, because I'm not saying that people wouldn't still hate that, but it's a bit harder to be like, oh God, this kid sucks. It's like, it's a fucking 10-year-old. Don't be a dick. But like at this point, I'm pretty sure Wheaton's a teenager, so it does come off as a little bit smug. And then also, like you said, from the behind the scenes, it's like, yeah, he's a teenager. Don't fucking pull him by his arm. What the fuck's your problem? Like, it's not like he's like a little like kid who's like, what is acting? It's like, no, he has a fucking full vocabulary.
He knows enough to take direction and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And plus, what was it? And again, it was the writer. It was the things the writers made him say. The writers didn't do a good job of ingratiating him to the audience because he said he would make the adults. It was that whole like, oh, the adults are idiots kind of thing. But really, that in Will Wheaton and the character of Wesley Crusher's defense, that kind of evened out as the first season went on, and I would even hazard to say that by season 2. He was a lot more bearable. Like he was still gee golly, I'm a kid on a starship, but he was a little more, and he wasn't saving the ship every week. He would help the senior staff, come up with ideas because the cool thing about TNG as a series is that whereas Kirk, he would have his committee of Kirk and McCoy and Spock to talk to. TNG Picard was all about everybody bouncing ideas off of each other. They would all sit in the conference room, and so there was a very like collaborative type thing. So Wesley would they toned it down to he's a genius who can solve every problem. To he really knows his stuff for not having gone to the academy, and he can help contribute to the solutions without totally making the senior staff look like idiots. But
they had a conference room in the original Star Trek, but they used it very sparingly. Very sparingly.
Yeah. It was mostly for like special occasions and like diplomatic functions and things like that. It wasn't like TNG where every week they would have their powwow in the at the long table and figure out how to get out of the space wedgie of the week.
No, I don't know why. What is the space wedgie of the week, Captain? So Wesley, how could we get rid of him but not like kill him? Suggestions.
I'm not saying kill, but
Deanna's just like, I feel an immense sadness. Oh, he's right fucking behind me, isn't he?
Hi, Wes. Hey, buddy. No, we were just talking about giving you a promotion and just wait in the airlock here, and I'm going to go get the.
No, again, without killing him. This is without killing. No, but what I love is, look, like I feel like Picard would yell, "Focus on the positives, kid. I said not kill you." Jesus, Wesley.
What? I said don't kill you.
Whatever. Jesus. One person. No, she's just like, come on, man. Just get over yourself. Jesus. Kid's gotten everything. Mom's like looking at him. Are you serious?
But one thing before I don't mean to line jump you, but there is one thing that I absolutely must say here because it's one of my favorite pieces of Star Trek trivia. The Writer's Bible for Next Generation has and it has the descriptions of all the characters and some basic things. Canonically says that Picard only puts up with Wesley because he thinks his mom is hot. And I'm going to quote you. I have the entry almost memorized, but he says that under Wesley's entry, it says that Picard probably wouldn't let him in on the day-to-day operations of the bridge if, and I quote, his mother didn't have the natural walk of a striptease queen.
That's so odd to be in the Bible of TNG when the show itself seemed very progressive.
Yeah, it's it is because Star Trek is progressive. The writers at the time, 80s sci-fi writers are some of and I don't mean to. I hope I'm not insulting anybody's like grandpa or anything like that. But 80s sci-fi writers were some of the most misogynistic people in the in the business.
I'm not saying that. Well, here's the thing. I don't know, dude. Just hear me out, right? They are for the '80s, but I feel like people who wrote Star Trek are just like, oh, you small child. Like, I don't know, because there's certain things, the original's TOS, because there's certain things in TOS I'm like, wow. Like, just little stuff. It's not even, like, crazy, like, it's supposed to be a big deal. It's just like, it's just like, what kind of man you think could run this ship? Well, only a man, of course, who could run this ship. Like, little tiny bits of dialogue in the original TOS, and I'm just like, wow, that was just like, well, of course.
Yeah.
Like, it was, like, not even, like,
and that's
crazy
the culture
attention
of the time
brought to it.
bleeding through.
Yeah. Of course. But in this case, I feel like just even seeing a dude in this like a random person working, behind the scenes on the ship, like a red shirt, wearing a skirt, and him being
the scant. Yeah, I wish they kept those.
But I'm just saying that, like, seeing something like that, I was like, oh wow, because that's something that you would think would happen in Discovery, and someone would go, oh, the SJWs.
Yeah.
They're ruining the Star Trek, and it's like that came out 30 years ago. So it's interesting that the writers were not as kind as what you saw on screen, which was very much this, in a way, kind of different take. Because when you look at TOS, maybe I'm the one who hasn't watched it in a while. Even though you had Kirk and everyone say, "Hey, we're doing this because we're doing this because of peace. We're on a peaceful mission." If there was even the smallest amount of resistance, it was like, "We're going to kill them." Yes, I know someone out there is going to be like, they always set phasers to stun, you jerk. They did, but there was a lot of punching. You can't set punches to stun. There was a lot of fighting.
Kirk was a little more cowboy diplomacy, talk with his fists kind of guy as compared to Picard overall. But yeah, and any progressive sci-fi show is only as progressive as the time that it was written. But I know what you mean. How, like it says, TNG was the kinder, gentler Star Trek. But like I said, the fact that a lot of the stuff that was just for the writer's eyes only, so maybe they weren't as shy about it. But there was you definitely got the sexism in TOS was pretty common. Like I said, it was there. Even TNG wasn't immune. TNG was 20 odd years had passed, but there were still some objectionable things even in the most the most vaunted TNG.
Of course there's going to be. But, like, just from this first episode, it did feel like a shift. And I do wonder if maybe perhaps that might be another reason why at the time there were some people who had grew up on Star Trek. Not that I'm saying that they're sexist or racist or anything, but it definitely, I do wonder, like, if there are people at the time who were just like, not just, oh, this is not my Star Trek in general, but if they were also like, this seems like it's a wussy Star Trek.
I mean, there might have been, and again, it probably depends on who you ask too. I'm sure there were people that felt like that, and I know that there was, I think, a few eyebrows were raised that, like, a lot of people thought, or and I think this might have also been partly as a result of me reading reviews and analyses in hindsight, but they said it was a very pop psychology, like there's a therapist on the bridge kind of thing, like they, so I can imagine, that when the show first came out, that tonal shift of going from space cowboys to, the I'm okay, you're okay, crystal healing 80s. There was definitely a sense of that. You said just with, like, Troy being on the bridge and an empathic counselor being on the bridge of the ship. So that tonal shift was there. Like I said, I don't necessarily know that people. And I'm sure that there were people, and there were probably also people that said that, oh, there's a blind black dude flying the ship, so it must be, the word SJW didn't exist back then, but I'm sure that there was a very undesirable subset of the audience that was like, oh, what is this PC bullshit kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. So, no, and again, I'm not saying that's everyone who is watching, of course, because obviously TNG had sizable ratings, if I remember correctly, especially its first episode.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, there was, I think you were telling me some stuff last time we did this podcast about the two-parter. So, because I thought the two-parter was a little odd. Like, I'm not saying that it shouldn't have happened. I'm just saying that it didn't feel strong necessarily as a two-parter. I forgot, like, if you had told me some extra stuff about it, like, oh, they wanted to start off with a bang, but then for some reason it turned into space jellyfish. Or if that's just a common theme for TNG.
Oh well, the whatever it was turned out to be a life form the whole time. Is a tried and true Trek trope.
Of course.
You know, but as far as it being a two-parter and parts of it probably feeling very filler and feeling like the pacing was off in certain places was probably because initially it was intended to be a single episode, and there was no cue. It was just going to be an episode about the mystery of Farpoint Station. And then they decided after the fact that they wanted to make it into a feature-length pilot, and then they added Q in to pad it out. But unfortunately, the seams kind of show. You can tell that there were parts of it that seemed kind of tacked on, and like I said, the pacing is way off in parts of it. There's when Riker comes on board, Picard wants to get him up to speed on the events that happened before, just before, like earlier that day. And we have to watch the logs of the scenes that we just saw. So there was some pretty obvious padding in certain places where you can tell that they were trying to stretch a one-parter into a two-parter.
So that made me laugh only because, like, in a sick way, because it just kind of felt like Picard was showing him like video of like, this country has launched its nukes. The world does not know, but we will all be dead within the day. And it's just like he's just walking out of the room like, Mr. President, I've seen the footage. Like, it looked like that. Like, it looked like he just revealed like some but it just looked like he revealed like, no, because to be fair, Q as a being could just blink and they're all out of existence. Like, the entirety of not just them on the ship, just their entire race is just blinked out of existence. Like, if his powers are the way they seem to be, which he seems to be not just a magician, like he seems to actually have some world-bending...
Oh, it's for real, yeah. He could Thanos the entire Federation if he wanted to.
That's the thing, yeah. That's why, like, it's not... I'm not saying it's not a big deal. It kind of felt like he had just given him, like, I guess it's like, oh, no, you know what, maybe let me make it a bit more relaxing and comfortable. It's like if at the end of The Matrix, you walk into the room, you see everything. It's like, yes, this is existence now. How do you feel about it? Like, just having your whole situation turned upside down. Like, it's just because the look on Riker's face is just like,
we get like he calls that they call that a little adventure.
Yeah, like it's just like, do we get CG guys on that, or is that all real? That just happened.
Well, Captain, the production values are great, but I feel it looks like it could have been made by Paramount in the latter part of the 20th century.
Jesus Christ. Oh, speaking of special effects, I know it's been a while. I don't know if you have the VHS tapes of this episode, but I'm curious. Do you know if because I'm sure you watched it now on Netflix to rewatch it, unless you have the DVDs or something. Okay, Netflix. I'm wondering if they've updated the special effects like they did TOS, because some of it looks too good to be done in the 80s.
Now, in fairness, a lot of it did, like, especially even like the effects for the space jellyfish, that was pretty damn good for its time, if I'm not too much mistaken. And it does hold up pretty well. I think they remastered, like they cleaned up the video, like the actual picture quality, but I don't think they did like they did with TOS, where they replaced models with CG or anything like that.
Okay, because when I look at the ship, I'm like, that's not a model.
No, they did some CG there. Definitely don't quote me on this, and I may be thinking of something else, but I almost feel like they got like ILM to do that part of it. Because I think ILM did I was gonna say Yoda, did Odo, his transformations on DS9, I think. But like I said, I could be completely making this up, listeners, so feel free to call me out on it. But I do remember that being
we have a comment section for a reason, so that's fine.
There you go. But I do remember that being like a thing there, and but no, I don't think the Blu-rays or whatever it is, I don't think they actually redid They might
Okay.
they might have cleaned it up, but I don't think they actually did a replacement on anything.
Gotcha. Okay, because it does look cleaned up. Not just the general video quality, but just looking at like when they were docking the ship, which I was sitting there and like I got to admit, watching it again because I've seen this episode a few times, of course, having us record it and do the podcast and everything. So I do think that that when you're really honing in on the fact that like yes, this whole thing could explode, it does feel tense. It really does. I have to admit. But the first time we talked about this on the last recording, I still want to bring over that similar sentiment and just say that it does kind of feel like that filler, though, that we were just talking about. Like, we have to redock, sir? Look, I know this is terrible, and we all might die. And no one, because I never thought of them having to redock as like a life or death situation. Granted, it was because they had to do it manually because they were concerned about their systems being overridden. I get it. But it was just a moment where, I don't know, it just did not, in context, yes, it is a scary situation. But sitting at home on my couch, it did not seem as thrilling as maybe they wanted it to seem.
Yeah, because here's the thing. The big issue with the pacing with that episode is that they were on a time limit. I think they had, like 24 hours to prove to a super being that humanity has grown and evolved. And they're like kind of dicking around with the saucer separation and the saucer reattachment and the mission logs and things like that. But the saucer reattachment was also character-wise was a test for Riker because we don't really see Picard ever be that cold to him ever again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're just like, I assume you are trained to perform this function. Then I mean, now, Commander, like, really, it doesn't even call him number one, calls him Commander, which I think that was Picard feeling him out, because at the time, like I said, he didn't know what to make of Riker because Riker's service record says that he stopped the captain of his, I think it was the captain of the Hood, his previous assignment. He stopped him from beaming down to a dangerous planet. So I think Picard was trying to get a sense for who he was dealing with.
And I love it because I love Riker's whole thing. It's just like, hey, isn't it my responsibility to keep you safe? I mean, well, arguably, yes, so then I'm going to keep you safe. But not if you're overriding my actual orders. But then I wouldn't be keeping you safe. God damn it. Data. Let's get Data in here to settle this. Data just explodes. Error.
It's just anything he does to Data what Kirk did to Landru, and just talks the computer into blowing up.
But I want to ask you something, because you mentioned Q, and you mentioned that, obviously the whole idea was, which by the way, Q, fucking amazing addition. I cannot imagine, I've only seen one episode, and I can't imagine the show without Q already.
Oh, he's iconic. And honestly, you know what it is? That's completely, in my opinion, thanks to John Delancey's performance, because I think if anybody else was playing the character, they probably would have played it too broad or too. I mean, and Delancey does play it over the top, but like it wouldn't have. He either would have been just another generic supervillain, like super being, or he would have been ridiculous and over the top. But John Delancey got it just right, like to the point where you would almost think that the character was made for him.
I think that's the first thing too, definitely. No, I think he's ridiculous and over the top, but that's not a problem for me. Like, that's a good thing, because I don't think that a villain like him needs to be dry.
No, the galaxy is his playground.
Yes. So, like, in a way, he is like a child.
Exactly.
So it would be odd if he was just like, so you humans are very, very interesting creatures, aren't you?
Yeah,
like,
you guys have done a lot of really barbaric and messed up stuff, and I just really think that you guys need to stop. And I don't think that you've changed at all in the last few centuries. So the only way you're going to convince me is if you can find the jellyfish in the space station.
That's the thing. Like, it's just beautiful. Like, he just plays it. Like, I'm not saying he isn't somber in some cases, but there's just it's his face. It's of course what he's wearing. So of course props.
His many costumes.
Let's give props to props. Seriously though, exactly. Like they worked overtime for him.
Oh yeah. Well, you have no idea, because when he appeared in the military costume, the like 20th century military uniform, dress uniform, those were actually, it was the same exact uniform with the same exact medals and markings as Oliver North from the Iran-Contra scandal that had happened not long before.
Oh, wow. So that probably definitely turned some people off to this show just immediately.
Well, they did. Well, I mean, yeah, I'm sure because we figure '87 that was like the waning days of the Cold War. But they basically there was a direct call out where Q pretended to be from the 20th century. He's like, oh, actually, we got to go deal with the commies. All it takes is a few good men. And Picard's like,
yes.
What? That nonsense is centuries behind us.
Mhm. That's interesting. So, and I think that's it's very interesting that again this show did something that today, because I feel like without that context, like look, I understood that it was anti-war sentiment, but without that context, I just feel like there are people who are just like, yeah, no, because I swear to God, there are people online, you've probably seen them, John, who've said, I don't like this bullshit, this political nonsense in Discovery. I want to go back to a Star Trek without politics, like TNG.
Nope. Yeah, every single Star Trek, TOS, and in fact TOS especially, was all about the quote unquote like social conscience issues right from the very beginning. I mean, if TOS tackled racism, it tackled the idea of war. There was at least one or two scathing indictments of the Vietnam War, which was going on at the time. So Star Trek has never not been political ever.
Yeah. But it's just so funny that, again, like, we have this immediate, just in the first episode, within the first 20 minutes, just, hey, stop talking about that war. War sucks. War shit. We don't like war. And then literally just basically calling that out and just people at home sitting, thank goodness it's not political.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, wait a minute.
It always has been.
But one thing, speaking of the timeline, though, because you mentioned, of course, happened a long, long time ago, does anyone ever, and I mean not anyone like the fans, because of course the fans follow everything that is said on screen, but the fact there's definitely some wikis that I'm just like, whoa, this wiki is a bit too advanced for me. I feel like I love it, but I feel like I'm looking at a textbook. So when it comes
found
to
Memory Alpha, did you?
Yeah, right. But what I'm talking about is this: is there? Okay, so when you look at certain universes, like let's look at Star Wars as an example. Let's say, right? Yes, there are obviously a bunch of out of continuity novels. I mean, at one point they weren't out of continuity, but that's a whole other podcast. But as of right now, many novels that are out of continuity, many comics that are. Is there a general driving force, or like a someone behind the scenes who's been running this for a long time, or who can say, okay, this like from TNG to let's say Voyager, here's what is canon, or do they just not care anymore? And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean, like, do they look at what was said throughout this first episode and actually follow that in any meaningful way outside of TNG?
Yes, okay. Actually, and that's why, and it's actually pretty cool because at various points there were times when the shows overlapped, and they were absolutely in continuity and in universe with each other. And canon was picked up on with varying degrees of success, because a lot of times the writers didn't worry too much about making sure that something that they said or did in an episode jibed with what they did in an episode 10 years prior, or to make it match up with some line that somebody said in, an early episode. But there's largely there's continuity. And
okay, so there are
in fact,
a few flubs.
Of course, just like anything else. But you do get the sense, and that's why I love Star Trek. One of the many reasons why I love Star Trek is that it all kind of feels like one big happy universe, because, you got Picard flying around, and then, at the same time, Sisko's doing his thing, and, like TNG and DS9 ran alongside each other for 2 seasons. And then, so there was overlap, like, the events that happened in one would, there would be a little bit of fallout in the other, especially when it got into like the Maquis story arc where they were trying to set up Voyager. And then DS9 and Voyager ran alongside each other for quite some time.
Right. So, so then they do actually have, for the most part, good continuity within each other, because I was worried that, because these are such amazing concepts, that the idea of like, oh, we went through this war and we went through this and then this happened, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, is all of this just a random one-off reference in in this episode, and we will never see it referenced either in this series or any other series ever again. So it's nice to know that. Okay, what?
Yeah, is that well, especially that exact example. It's funny you mentioned that the World War III post-atomic horror thing.
Mm-hmm.
The show did have the franchise did have a little trouble nailing that down.
Okay.
I don't know offhand exactly. So because the dates and things that they mentioned in Farpoint for World War III don't exactly line up with some of the later continuity, like especially when they talk about Zefram Cochrane's first warp flight, which led to the Earth's Renaissance and the formation of the Federation and things like that ultimately. But there is a little bit of snarl with that, like that making the timeline that they originally set sync up. But again, that was a line written in 1987, and then 10, 15 years on, people may not have fact checked.
I'll just blame Spock.
Exactly. No, well, Spock. Yeah, and that's always a good go-to for Star Trek is they're dicking around with the timeline enough that something was bound to get messed up. We're lucky that that's all that got messed up.
Yeah. Right. Oh, speaking of timeline things that I feel odd about. I don't know if it's messed up, but I feel odd about. So, Bones is in his 130s.
Yeah, give or take a decade or two.
Well, no, Data said it, and it's Data, which, by the way, I loved. Oh my God, you don't have pointy ears, boy.
But you sound like a Vulcan.
Is that a problem?
But that was one of the best parts of the episode because it was a really heartfelt, nice little send off, and you'll notice they didn't refer to McCoy by name.
That's what I wanted to ask you about.
Because it was just meant to be
I asked you about this last
Admiral.
time. Yeah, well, no, they don't call. He just says Admiral. No, I'm confused about it though because I know sometimes calling him by name is cheesy, and even although it's funny though because it's Data, so he would call him by full name. Although to be fair, he would want to go for rank first. But still, what I'm saying is this though. What confuses me about it is that you don't want to refer to him by his name, okay, but the fact that the actor, which I don't remember the actor's name,
DeForest Kelley.
Thank you. He wanted to go with his natural accent, which, because he's a Southern man, Southern boy. So he was living in the South at the time, and so he wanted to go with that accent instead of something more, like the accent that he had when he was playing the character in TOS. But then to me, that makes me, because think about this, right? I'm assuming, and I know you weren't seeing all of the press at the time, but you've told me you've looked back, so I think we talked about this last time. You told me that they were making a big deal about it, perhaps, at least maybe the night after or the night before. Because, of course, just the media hype. You're going to talk about the fact that this character appeared, right, in the episode. But without that hype, I'm not saying I didn't know who it was because I'm I could squint, but the fact that he's supposed to be 130, so he has all this makeup on him.
Yeah. So it was meant. It was kind of meant to be a low key thing because I know they didn't want TNG to be in TOS's shadow. They wanted to kind of set themselves apart from the original.
Right, which is why it's that far down the line. Assuming that how old do you think Bones was when the show first aired? Maybe in his 40s at most?
40. I would say 40s.
So that's 90 years ahead.
Yeah, and I think the magic number was 75.
Okay.
Between the end of TOS and the beginning of TNG. So, because the first season of TNG is 2364.
Okay. So either way, again, regardless of what their age is supposed to be in TOS, 75 years. It's funny though because again, it's the future. So why can't he be in his 130s living on Earth?
Yeah.
Yeah. Although something I'm a little confused about as well, and this is why I need John here, everybody. When you have Q talking about Earth, talking about people in general and how they all continuously fuck up, because here's what I always get confused about when intergalactic beings just shit on people. Sometimes this happens usually with Japanese media that I'll do. I'll be doing something with Tristan, like a book of the month, and we'll be talking about something called Dragon Ball Super. You know what that is, at least vaguely, John. Dragon Ball Super.
Right.
I'll be like, oh yes, these humans, and then other times.
Did I lose you for a second there?
universe. It's not just humanity. So we know that
Right,
it's an
yeah,
entire
so,
universe, not just humanity. So in this case, what I'm like Q, in my opinion, maybe I'm forgetting because I didn't watch it like directly before we did this podcast. Right now, I watched it a few days ago. So did he say humans or mortals? Because I'm sitting around because I'm thinking, is Picard from Earth? Like, is Deanna
yes.
Troi from Earth? Riker from, like, they're all Earthlings?
Yeah, so that's the thing. It was definitely directed at humanity.
Okay.
He did say humans. He said humanity, which that does bring up the question though why Data was put on trial.
That's what I'm saying.
Because,
Yeah.
And Troy is half Betazoid. So I guess that's enough for her to get lumped in with it. But yeah, it doesn't explain why Data was put on trial with everyone else, unless they're counting the fact that he was made by a human who made him in his exact image, and so there's a little bit of vanity.
Also, story-wise,
and hubris there.
They had to have him counteract, Q with his own words, which was fucking hilarious. Literally, it's just, we're using your words against you, and you're going to say that we should be tried. And he's just, Q's like, Mon Capitan.
Can we assume this will be a fair trial?
I mean,
yes, absolutely equitable.
It's being run by a fair man. Just points to his own face. Just does a pose.
Yes.
Damn it, Q. Is this a fair trial?
And also too, worth mentioning, O'Brien, who they didn't even give him a name at that point. He was just a con officer. O'Brien was there on the ship too, and he didn't get whisked away to the courtroom. So I don't know if he was in the bathroom at the time, but it would be the very last time that O'Brien ever got lucky on Star Trek and managed to avoid danger ever again.
Okay. I can't wait to see those episodes.
Yeah, and not even so much on TNG, but O'Brien, as you might know, is that from these humble beginnings as a no-name, helm officer, would end up becoming a recurring guest character, like a semi-regular on TNG, and then he would actually become a main character on DS9, where they made him suffer horribly.
What I think is interesting, too, is how Riker's character, growing throughout the series, including his beard, eventually was able to get, in the Star Trek universe, get a show hosting as a person talking about what things are fact or fiction. Very interesting that Riker went on to do that in canon. That's all canon to me. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. No, that's Jonathan Frakes. No, it's Riker with a beard.
Riker retired from Starfleet and decided to do a cable TV show where he said things like, "Nope, you're wrong. Nope, fooled you."
Well, it was very hard for anyone watching in that universe to tell what was fact or fiction, because when they went into the historical stuff, they were going hundreds of years into the past. So nobody legitimately knew. Like, wait, that was a story from 1951. I don't know if it's fact or fiction.
Perhaps the archives are incomplete.
So wait, I forgot. You watched Fact or Fiction. You love it, right?
Oh yeah.
Dude, I saw that on Sci-Fi when I was a kid, and I got hooked to the point where I was like, "This is scary," but I just kept on. I was like, "I'm scared, but I'm watching." And then it was so funny when, like, you know what was the scariest part? You would think the story is the scariest part. The scariest part is when Jonathan Frakes looks into your soul and says, "That was true." I was like,
that could have that did happen. That could happen to you. But what really sold it for me was Jonathan Frakes has a very distinctive delivery. Like, it's very he sounds like he's really into what he's saying, but there's that little bit of Riker not haughtiness, but like that little snarkiness that comes with it. But no, it was always cool. It was always fun to try to guess, which one could have, the things that could have happened and things that were just patently impossible.
Just something about, maybe it's your beard, but something about the way he hosted the show. I feel like you could also host the show in a similar way, John.
Oh, I would love to. or maybe it's just that fact or fiction Riker has informed informed the man I would become.
I think that's the case. Also, isn't it really weird because that he's just beardless in this episode?
Yeah, that really took a lot of getting used to. He didn't have it throughout any of the first season. And just in hindsight, it looked really, it was weird. Like I said, I didn't say, wait a minute, that's not Riker. He doesn't have a beard.
Good-looking man, so I can understand why they were like, let's keep him beardless for a bit. Like, I get it. Some of the ladies were like, no, Picard. Other ladies were like, I am here only for Riker.
But let's face it, everyone wanted Data. He was the heartthrob of the group.
There's definitely hardcore Data fan base. We're not getting into it right now, but there definitely is.
But funny story about the beard, though, is that it was never part of the original plan, because between the first and second season, Frakes was growing his beard out, and he actually had with the intention of shaving it off before filming started on season 2. But during the hiatus, he went to a con with a beard, and the con goers loved it, and they convinced him to keep it.
That's really funny. It's
and
just
the rest,
funny to
as
me
they say, is history.
No, it's just funny because like that beard definitely deserves some SAG credit because it helped him. Like it helped him a lot.
Well, that's why it's not for nothing that on TV tropes, the term for when a show really comes into its own is called growing the beard, and that's a direct reference to to Riker, Riker growing the beard, and as his beard grew, so did the show.
I don't usually like TV tropes, but my God, that's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, and then we all know that point. That's when the show really hits its stride. It really comes to be what the show that we know and love.
So you're saying the show grew. Do you refer to that as a ratings thing, or more of just in quality?
In quality.
Okay.
As time went on, and debates will rage forever as to when it really, quote unquote, got good or what the best season was. I'm gonna make my unpopular opinion here and now that the first season was a little bit rough. It got watchable toward the end. I think the common thread is that people always say that the show didn't get good until season 3. And season 3 is definitely where it finally hit its stride and really was like the beginning of the TNG that we know and love. But the second season is highly underrated, and there were really a lot of good episodes. That it was a huge improvement over season 1 and was a big step in the right direction. There were still clunkers. There was for every Q-Who or Measure of Man, there was an outrageous Okana or one of those, or a Shades of Grey. But that's really when it started to just take a big step in the right direction. Even though, like I said, I would say season 3 was like they had arrived, like it had officially stepped out of TOS's shadow and become its own show.
For me, I think the show hit not its peak, but it definitely came into its own. The second one of those, she was a woman working on the ship. She seems to be Hispanic. She looks at Riker's ass as he's walking away. To me, I think that's when the show came into its...
When he was trying to get directions to the holodeck and the weird lights that we never saw again. And she gave him a little once over, giving old Willie Rikes a taste of his own medicine.
I just think it's funny simply due to the fact that it just seems so real. Like, it's just like tight pants,
these are real
nice
people.
butt. So that's the thing. Like, it's something about this show, and I know it's obviously it's sci-fi, but there's something about this show that does seem real, and it also seems like the cast, other than I guess Will Wheaton, everyone to Will Wheaton, it seemed, or at least certain people. We'll talk about that in a second, but it seemed like the cast really meshed well together.
Oh man, Matt, you have no idea. These people love each other. Like everybody says that every TV show cast. Of all the Star Trek series, I think TNG's cast got along the best.
Wait a minute,
they loved each other.
Whoa, hold on. I thought everyone loved William Shatner on TOS. Was I wrong? I thought everybody loved William Shatner.
No. Everyone loved William Shatner, especially George Takei.
Oh, no. I was going to say, you know who loved William Shatner the most? William Shatner. One of his biggest fans.
And when I directed Star Trek V, I got such a good performance out of me because I respect me so much.
Is that a quote?
That's from Futurama.
Oh, thank God!
Because Leonard Nimoy was like, when I directed Star Trek IV, I got a great performance out of Bill because I respect him so much. And then Shatner was like, and I got a good performance out of me in Star Trek V because I respected me so much.
Yes, thank you. Because I must have heard that before. I love Futurama, but my God, that sounds like a real thing. Like it just sounds like something he legitimately said in an interview.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the crew, the cast got along really well with TNG, and to the point that they were all big jokesters. They loved to like laugh and play jokes on each other and stuff like that. To the point that one of my other favorite behind the scenes stories is that Patrick Stewart, right from the Shakespeare Globe Company, very straight laced, very professional,
very Shakespeare.
would yell at them.
You could tell that he's very Shakespeare in the first episode.
He came up Shakespeare, and he would yell at them. He's like, we need to be professional. We're not here to have fun. And then by the end of the first season, Patrick Stewart was the biggest jokester of them all. Like I said, he was the silliest out of all of them, and they had a blast, all of them, and like to this day, you even look at their social media pages, and Michael Dorn and Brent Spiner are hanging out and things like that. So yeah, they probably were closer than almost any other TV cast out there. They loved it, to the point that guest stars would often say that they felt left out. Like they said that I felt like I was coming into an inside joke that I didn't get, or I felt like the crew, the regular cast were so close with each other that the guest stars felt like they felt like they were walking in on like friends or family or something like that.
That's
so
interesting. I like that in a way. I mean, I don't like that they were excluded, but it's nice that the cast, because just watching this episode, one thing that I definitely can't say was bad is the cast or the crew, everyone interacting with each other. Like they all seem like either they truly are meeting each other for the first time or that they've known each other for a long time. Like it doesn't seem like there was something truly amiss. The only thing that seemed amiss was it seemed like even Beverly Crusher was like, fucking Wesley.
Yeah,
like there were certain points
where
she's just trying to get her work done, and I'm like, can't you get him like a Federation babysitter if you don't want him to be on this mission with you? Like, why does it seem as if... No, because she even seems like she's just like, I guess we have to get something for you to do on the ship, and it's like, are you telling me that in this year there are no non-violent but still extremely entertaining and stimulating video games for the kid to play?
Yeah, exactly. Well, no spoilers, but the next time that anybody tried to play a video game when Wesley was around, things got bad.
Oh God. But you see what I'm saying though? Like really? Like there's nothing that the kid could. No futuristic Atari. Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, why don't you go play Space NES or?
I'm just saying, like it just feels.
Well, there's the there's the holodeck.
Yeah. Also,
basically,
speaking,
you wouldn't.
What was it? What were you going to say?
Oh, was it? There's the holodeck, so you could actually be, you could play, you could be Mario. You wouldn't have to play NES.
Be Mario. I'm just saying that, like, other than even with his, storyline mother and Wesley, other than that, in general though, it seemed like everyone got along. Now, you were telling me apparently last time, Will Wheaton, not Wesley, Will Wheaton and Patrick Stewart were not getting along, just the same way that their characters were in the first season?
No, I mean, they got along fine. Will Wheaton has never had anything but positive things to say about Patrick Stewart, even during the first season. So even early on when Patrick Stewart was kind of being a little bit of a hard-on, they still got along. He said, I think they always had a pretty warm relationship.
Okay. Because I thought we were discussing the fact that he was kind of rude to Wheaton the most, although maybe that was speculation. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, and he said he probably was the most like remote out of everybody because, like I said, he was kind of just there. He didn't even unpack, during the first season because he was sure the show was going to last beyond one season. So he was treating it as, in his words, a paid vacation to America. And
Holy shit.
So he didn't expect the show to last. He was like, I'll go to America, I'll knock this out, and get paid for a season, and that's going to be it.
Now, why did he think that? Is it because of the fact that Star Trek, the original, only lasted 3 seasons, or?
It was, I think, in his mind, it was just like popcorn science fiction. I think, of course, he had to have recognized the cultural relevance that TOS had gotten, and that Star Trek was a big deal. But he probably figured it was just another. Because remember, like I said, he had the classical background, so in his mind, it was probably just, oh, this is some schmaltzy, cheesy sci-fi show. It's not even gonna last a year, Star Trek or not. And
Okay, because yeah, I'm not saying, because my thing is this, right? I understand like McGinnis in episode 4 being like, yeah, this is stupid. Like, I get it because it was the first Star Wars movie. Like, I love Star Wars. I loved episode 4, but it's the first one, so I get it. But like, to me, I guess I don't know, I compare it to, and maybe it's just different to some people, but I compare it to like if Liam Neeson on episode 1 was like, yeah, I don't think it's going to do well. I'd be like, are you sure, dude? Like,
it'll do well
I don't
just
know,
for
man.
the fact that it's Star Wars. It'll do well just for the fact that it's Star Trek.
No. But that's okay. That's fair. But what I'm saying is that, like, if he would be like, "There's probably not going to be an episode 2," even if I was going to be in it, I don't know. I'd be like, I don't know, man. I think there's going to be an episode 2. I don't think they're going to stop at 1 after doing 4, 5, and 6.
Liam Neeson,
what I'm trying to say
Liam
is,
Neeson said,
yeah,
Liam
that's what
Neeson
I'm saying.
says,
Like,
I don't think this Star Wars thing is going to get off the ground.
But that's what I'm trying to say. Like, it just feels weird, in my opinion. Maybe I'm putting too much into Star Trek at the time, but I just feel as if with the first 3 seasons, like, it's weird. Because look, I'm not saying that it wouldn't like, I could understand if Patrick Stewart was like, it'll probably last 2 seasons at most. I get it, but like him being like, I'm not even unpacking. It's like, really? Not even unpacking? Damn. Like,
yeah, and that was just his said. I don't think he was a fan of the series, so like
and that's fine
in
too.
his mind, it's like, oh, it's.
No, I'm not saying he needs to be a fan. It's just like it lasted 3 seasons. So like all you have to do is like talk to people at a convention. I know like the internet's not the same as it is right now, but like talk to people at a convention, like I don't know, like see media coverage. Maybe the media coverage was not as hyped about it as I'm thinking in my head, like how
maybe,
everything is
and
hyper.
maybe in his mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it was still an event, like the new Star Trek coming out was a big, definitely a big thing. I think though it might have also been that in his mind, and like I said, I don't want to I don't know what was going through his head at the time, but
okay.
But at the same time, I still think that he was probably like, oh, well, they're rehashing, like they're trying to they're trying to recapture the magic of the original series, or they're trying to bring more Star Trek out of it, when really it's, maybe in his mind it already, by then TOS had 3 seasons, and then I think there had been 4 movies. So he may have also thought that, it's been done to death. And
okay.
This
I
is
always
just
forget
yet
about
another.
the movies.
They had done 4 movies, the fourth of which being the most commercially successful, which actually, the quote unquote the one with the whales, TNG mainly was allowed to exist because that one did well,
right?
Because they were gonna kind of use that as a metric for how much of a demand for a new show there would be, and that ended up going over pretty well, and in a sense, that basically ensured that there would be a TNG.
So then I have a question. Do you think that the fact that these movies also came around the same time TNG came out, maybe that might also be why there could have been some resistance to why is this Star Trek without these characters? Because heck, they were in the movies.
Yeah. I think there was skepticism that Trek could work without Kirk and Spock, because like I said, at the same time they weren't gone. You could still see them in the movies.
Yes.
And stuff like that.
That must suck to people. Yeah.
But there was probably
think
skepticism that they could make it work without them.
Right, and that's understandable. I mean, now we look back. Another thing too with hindsight is you look at Patrick Stewart and you're like, it's fucking Patrick Stewart. What the fuck are all of you talking about? But again, much different landscape, right? Looking at Frakes, it's like, it's Jonathan Frakes, damn you. Hell, looking at LeVar Burton.
Yeah.
Like, why would you think that wouldn't work?
I think he was and I think LeVar Burton was probably one of the more recognizable faces, because I think I'm 99% sure Reading Rainbow predated TNG.
I am as well.
But
I think he was the most recognizable until like Whoopi Goldberg, which I wanna sit back and be like, I don't know Whoopi Goldberg that is in this, but Netflix spoils it for you with thumbnails.
Yeah, they did that with Voyager. There's a cast change in the end of the 3rd season. That the cover image for the show kind of spoils if somehow you didn't already know.
Like nothing wrong with Whoopi Goldberg. Although I will admit I would definitely be a lot more hyped if she brought the T-Rex. But like nothing wrong with Whoopi Goldberg. Oh God, why did Matt just say that? But no, I would be hyped if she brought the T-Rex. That would definitely change up the dynamic of the show immensely. Did the T-Rex eat Wesley yet? No. Then don't mention the damn T-Rex.
Well, if she brought Theodore Rex on the ship, everyone would be like, "Oh my God, it's a Gorn."
Holy shit! You know the name of the movie. Jesus Christ!
Yeah,
right.
I'm not gonna sit here, Matt, and I'm not gonna pretend that I didn't know exactly what you were talking about. And the weirdest thing, okay, I'm gonna really blow your mind here. The guy that did the voice of Theodore Rex went on to do the voices of Superman and Sephiroth.
Wait, Superman in like the animated series?
Yeah, in the animated Justice League.
Oh, like the TV show?
Yeah, the DCAU Justice League.
Oh, wow! I didn't know he was also Sephiroth, but oh wow, that you're right. That did blow my mind. That's fucking awesome. Anyway, so
we're cramming everything into this.
Fucking clearly, we're cramming everything. No, but one thing cool about LeVar Burton too. Not only is he an amazing person, his daughter is a gaming personality. So
really?
I didn't realize. Yeah, no. So I was because she was on like a Rooster Teeth subdivision show called The Know, where they were just doing news and stuff. And so I see her, and it's like, oh, Mika Burton here, yada yada. Then I'm following her on Twitter, and then all of a sudden she's like, and I have to say, like, I think it was like her LeVar Burton's birthday. She's like, and I have to say, I give all the credit to my dad. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold the goddamn phone.
But
and it's
insanity. You gotta give her credit for not like milking that. Oh, I'm LeVar Burton's daughter. Like she,
that's
she mentioned it as almost like an afterthought.
I gotta be honest with you. That's the last thing anyone wants to do. I know, like it to some people, it's like it seems like that's the thing any child of a celebrity would want to do. But no, like you don't want to do that in public because, especially with a situation like this where LeVar Burton is in all of these different fandoms, Reading Rainbow and TNG. It's like you don't want to just be known as like, his kid. Like that's the last thing I think.
Yeah,
that,
you don't want to ride their
in my opinion.
But tell me more about the Reading Rainbow fandom. What kind of fan art do they have? What kind of OCs?
I don't know, but you know what it is though? There definitely is, just like with any kind of nostalgia, there definitely is a nostalgia for Reading Rainbow. I've never seen it, but you hear it online, just like you hear like with Bob Ross.
It's like Bob Ross and Mr. Rogers, where it's like a soothing, wholesome thing from our childhood.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And every single one of us can do the theme song.
Even though LeVar Burton isn't blind, which is a frustrating thing, I'm sure, for those in that community, I do have to say, though, just having that representation, though, yes, he technically can see, but still, I don't know, just the way that it was done, I think it was very, again, another progressive thing for the time that I'm like, oh, yeah, that's nice. To have him, like even putting race aside, because I will admit I don't know if he plays a bigger part later on in the show, but as of right now, yes, he is with the crew, but it's a much different than Michelle Nichols, who is like really like there, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, no, Geordi actually has definitely as prominent a role as actually a much more prominent role than Uhura, because Uhura's presence on the regular cast was was a big deal. They didn't give her quite enough to do, I feel like.
Okay, good. So I'm happy because again, I've only seen the pilot of TNG. So as of right now, it seems like Geordi, he doesn't seem to be with the rest of the cast as much. I'm happy that seems to change.
Oh yeah, no, he becomes a fixture. Like I said, I'm not going to spoil anything, but yeah, he's a big deal on the ship. You know what it is? Okay. In the first season, he was a lieutenant junior grade. He was a junior officer, so he kind of had to, but he definitely gets plenty of screen time. But but yeah, so it was a nice little bit of inclusion that you had a character with a in this case a disability, and he was actually named after a disabled Trek fan.
Really?
George LaForge. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Unfortunately, I think the real LaForge did pass away. I think before the show could be finished, but that's where that came from, And like I said, I say disabled. Geordi can actually see better than the rest of the crew.
Yes, yeah, I know. Yeah, that's why I said like he technically can see, yes, but still, at least it's something. And I know maybe some people in the community are like, hey, that's not enough for us, and that's fine. I can't speak for you guys, but I'm just saying that it's nice that there is something in a show like this because they continuously talk about the fact that like we work with everyone, like we love everyone. It's like you say you work with everyone, you say you love everyone, but like there are a lot of people you don't see, you know. So
Yeah,
literally
you don't
just don't see like
you won't see
yeah.
any gay characters. Not
Yeah.
until not it would take until Discovery for that for like on the gay characters
Yes.
in the regular cast, but
Yeah. So that's the thing. Yeah. So we're not going to get to that right now, but like just in general, like you are absolutely correct. Like there are certain characters you don't really see, so it's just nice to see LeVar Burton playing this character. Speaking of just talking about other different kinds of characters that you see though, I don't remember the name of the character. She has blonde short hair. She was in the trial.
Tasha Yar.
Yar. Okay. She is badass. Like
I love Tasha. Like
of course you do. I see. No, I just see the women that John and John. I'm like, of course you like her.
Oh yeah, no, she's a badass, and I'm gonna, like I said, spoilers. So I'm really just gonna keep what I say to a minimum. But yeah, she was a really excellent character. She was tough and
spoilers. That was John's first TV crush.
Oh, no. I think my first TV crush was April O'Neil, if I'm being completely honest. But or Smurfette, I can't remember. But yeah, Tasha's great, and she was actually modeled. She was modeled after Vasquez from Aliens. And the funny thing is that Denise Crosby and Marina Sirtis, Yar and Troy respectively, originally auditioned for each other's parts.
That's
because
funny.
The initial idea for Tasha Yar was that she was going to be named Macha Hernandez, and she was going to be like a tough Hispanic character in the vein of Vasquez from Aliens.
But Troy's actress, she's not Hispanic though.
No, she's actually. I mean, Maria Sirtis is from London. I think her lineage is like Greek.
I thought she was Hispanic though. I will admit that. But then you told me last time she wasn't, and I was like, oh, what?
Yeah, she said she's from England, and like I said, when you hear her talk in interviews, she's so from London. Like she's that lady from London, and honestly, she has the dirtiest mind, and she's amazing. I would honestly hazard to say that Marina Sirtis is even better crush material than Deanna Troi, because she's just got she's just a very whimsical, dirty-minded kind of person. But yeah, so they originally and as far as the accent on the show goes, I think that was something where the creators kind of didn't really know where they were going and just sort of let it go, because I think they had initially envisioned her as being, I think, a little more alien, and they were trying to I think they just told Marina, because they had an interview about this with her, that they had told her to do an accent, to just basically make up like an exotic sounding accent. Yeah. And so that's what we ended up with, which is kind of a weird, I don't even know how to describe it, like almost
it's just other different,
yeah,
but you can't
foreign.
Pick a place. Foreign, yeah, but you can't pick a specific place, definitely. And, one thing I want to say too about some of the interactions and her, just her some of her powers and stuff like that. It's so funny just trying to set things up, because that's the thing about this pilot, of course, is just trying to set things up to try to entice people. Even though I think some of those things were definitely, you've mentioned, seemingly dropped or potentially going to be dropped as the show goes on, but although one of them might not be, but let me give you two examples. Both of them romantic, seemingly one of them. The first one being when Beverly, is on the deck, and then her son Wesley is in the elevator, and it's like, your son, and the way he says it, I don't know if he's like, I remember him from when he was a boy. Of course, his father has passed away. This is sad, or like, your son. Yes, you may remember when we conceived him.
Yeah.
13 years and 9 months prior. Like, it sounded that, and maybe I'm wrong.
That I feel like that subtext was intentional, because at the time, like I said, they were teasing, there was a major ship tease with Picard and Crusher, and a lot of obvious sexual tension. So I think, I'm not sure whether that was something that was intended to potentially be true, or just a kind of hint that they wanted to drop that there was something between the two of them.
And it's definitely a sorry to interrupt, dude, but it's a tried and true example of leaving money on the table. I mean, you have Picard and Riker right there.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they go for him and Beverly. Like, okay. I mean, you have Picard and Riker right there, and you're like, no, let's go for this couple. All right. The fans can truly see what's going on here.
But we knew they all loved each other.
Yes. But no, so you're right. Like we were saying, that subtext is definitely there. And then the other one, which this one had me laughing hysterically. Just, do you remember when our minds met? Can you still hear my thoughts? Do you two happen to know each other? We've met, yes. Perfect. I love for my crew to know each other.
I love when my crew knows each other's abilities, and it's like, we do, sir.
It's just so. I'm crying because it's just like literally Q was completely accurate. He's a dullard, isn't he?
He's such a dullard, isn't he?
Like it's just, you just had that situation with Beverly, like what, 20 minutes ago? Can you not see it happening right in front of you?
Captain Oblivious, yeah. So it's just like, wait, there was a thing between you guys? I totally missed that.
Data's like, I missed it initially, and yet somehow, even though it's very hard for me to pick up certain social cues as to me being an android, I was able to figure it out, Captain.
And I don't even understand love.
That's another thing, too, by the way. Having an android, or technically, you can't call him an android. He's a robot, right? It's because
he's an android. Because an android is specifically designed to resemble a human.
But I thought an android was meant to be a hybrid.
That's a cyborg.
God damn it. Thank you.
Listen,
John.
if need be, we will have a types of robots, 101. But yeah, no, cyborg, a certain race that we may or may not run into on the next generation would be considered a cyborg, where they have organic and mechanical components, whereas an android is completely mechanical, but they're made in the image of a person.
Excuse me, we need a new villain of the week. Excuse me, Psy, is it? It's actually Mr. Borg. Thank you, Mr. Borg. Can you come aboard?
Yeah, exactly. That's what people. That's one of my favorite no shit bits of Star Trek trivia that people post on your day calendars and stuff like that. Is did you know Borg is short for cyborg? Wow, I didn't, but now I do. It makes so much sense.
Mind blown. Did you know that power in Power Rangers could become powerful when used in that context?
I didn't. I thought I knew I thought I was the ultimate fan, but I never put two and two together.
And did you know that Mega and Zord, Mega is short for Mega, separated from Zord, and then Zord.
Mega, of course, a prefix meaning superlative.
And then Zord is taken from the name of Zordon, who is a floating head, which was the inspiration for all of the heads in Futurama. That's not true, actually. That's a lie. That last part was a lie.
All right, so we're playing our own little game of fact or fiction with some of this trivia.
This is fucking great. Fact or fiction? That was wrong.
A fun game
You're
called
wrong.
Did John misremember this? Is this something John made up and then forgot that he made up, or is this actual truth? But no.
But anyway,
everything that I've said so far, I can. I didn't save the receipts, but I can vouch for it.
But anyway, so it was just funny seeing the crew interact, and again, just trying to do these little teasers like, are you guys going to be interested in the drama? Which I have to say, definitely was a huge departure from what the original series, in my opinion, was trying to do. Because, look, I'm not saying that this series can't be for children necessarily, but it definitely felt like the first series was trying to be a very action-heavy show to really get the kids in, and hopefully the moms and dads watching at home with their kids, where in my opinion, you seeing this at 3 years old was more of a byproduct of the fact that you were sitting in the same living room as your parents, not that you were like, no, we got to put on TNG.
Oh yeah, no, I just so happened to be. So my parents were fans of the original series, and that's the other thing too, is that I feel like they wanted Star Trek to mature with the people that had grown up with it. Like I said, I'll use my parents as the example. In the '60s they were kids. And then by the time Next Gen rolled around, they were adults. So the show kind of seasoned with them. You know, you went from having, you know, space cowboys to Picard, who was a little bit more reserved and you know, prudent and things like that. You know, preferred to think his way out of trouble instead of fighting. You know, so
Yeah.
I think in that way it kind of mellowed with the people that grew up with it.
No, honestly, like looking at both of them as captains, it really seems like they are both like the same man, but at different points of their lives.
Exactly.
Like Kirk is the man who's like, "Hey, I have hookers and blow," and like Picard is like, "I have a house and credit." Like it just
Exactly.
they just seem like they're the same person, just at two different times of their lives. Like I got to be real. Look at Kirk, and I cannot imagine Kirk not being like, no, it's fine. No, I'm sorry. Wow, I'm doing Picard's voice. No, it's fine. We've refined the cocaine. Like it's,
exactly.
You don't get addicted. I'm not addicted. I'm not addicted.
You know,
like I don't know. What?
Or like, it was a Kirk wants to party all night, and Picard is like, yeah, I got to be in bed by 12. I got to be up early tomorrow.
By 12? Picard's a 9 p.m. kind of guy.
Picard knows, you know, Kirk doesn't, but Picard has grown up and realized that you don't eat peanut butter at 3 in the morning, or you will get indigestion.
Jesus Christ! Like it just, I feel like you haven't learned that yet, John.
I haven't. I really haven't, and that's why I bring it up.
I'm sitting here and I'm just like, that sounds way too specific for it
that's
not to be.
That's oddly specific, but okay.
No, for it not to be a current day John problem.
Yeah, that's very much a current day. That's almost a right now problem. Honestly, it is that up to the minute. But yeah, so it kind of reflected that. Like I said, it reflected the changing times, you know, the changing political climate, and you know, the change in the people that were fans of the show. Because obviously, it was safe to say that, you know, fans of the original would be tuning in for the new one.
And again, it's so interesting because it's nice to have something that. Look, I'm not going to shit on newer stuff in any fandom, but it's nice, especially because of the fact that we have Picard coming back for something, which we'll talk about that a little bit later. But no, but what I'm trying to say is this, dude. It's nice to have something that's like, hey, we want to be our own thing. Like, we understand that you've gotten older, so we're going to try to make something for you, but not only as a pandering factor. Granted, that's why the movie.
Yeah, exactly. It's not to, you know, it's to create something new and exciting and cool, but that sort of, you know, it grows with the audience.
And I know Discovery exists as well, don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying is I feel as if the same thing was going to be tried again, which again, you see it's somewhat happening now, you'd basically have a situation where it'd be like, could
Yeah, like
because we gotta try to recapture all those people who just want to see Star Trek again. Not nothing new. No. They gotta see the original. It's nice to be able to see a small cameo from Bones, and other than that, it's its own thing.
Yeah, and a matter of fact, like early on, especially early on, but I would say later as well, they were very careful about not invoking TOS too much.
Yeah.
And then the question becomes, why then did they was the first regular episode after the pilot, why was that a revisiting of a plot of an episode of TOS? A weird move to kind of convince people that this is a completely new show, but you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah, no, we'll talk about that when we talk about that, and that is a problem definitely because again, like there's always that internal struggle of like we want to create something brand new, but then maybe you have someone on staff who's a bit higher up. It's like no, the money is with the fact that people want to see the same thing over and over again.
Well, our relationship with nostalgia has definitely changed. You know,
yes.
If you look at 2019 versus 1987, and certainly there was a degree of 60s Trek nostalgia at that time, but nostalgia is like almost a whole industry now.
Oh, it's a drug.
I mean, so much revolves around like recreating the past, you know, our past, you know, our golden memories.
Which is so odd only due to the fact that if I feel weird about the newest Ghostbuster or Ghostbusters, then let me just watch the original. It still exists. I don't need a new one that's an old one. I have the old one.
Do you know what I mean? The old ones, you'll just watch the old one.
Yeah. So like I don't know how TNG ends, although we do know that apparently Patrick Stewart is coming back to be Picard again. I don't know if it's a
Yeah.
Picard only series or if it's Picard and Friends and that's the rest of the cast. I don't know. All I know is because I don't know too much about this. We sadly haven't been able to talk about this. We have not been able to elsewhere because we have a Keikaku Corner show where we actually talk about weekly pop culture news, usually anime centered. But I wanted to get you on, John, to talk about that news with Picard, but I never got the chance to, so I never got to look into it. I assume you know more of it than I do, but I don't know if they've discussed if it's going to be like a movie or a show or something short, or I have no idea.
I'm a little bit out of the loop. I'm surprisingly not as up on the latest announcements and latest rumors and things like that. But it seems to be a TV series, and I do know that Jonathan Frakes is looking to direct an episode or two. I don't know who else is going to be on the cast, but yeah, but that's also why it's funny that when Patrick Stewart was like, "Oh, this isn't going to last a season," and now we're looking at 30 some odd years later. He's starting. Picard has his own show, so it's just goes to show never say never.
Well, not just that, but also time definitely softens people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, he definitely. Look, again, you're only talking about his previous interviews on how he sounded, but he definitely sounds like he's a much different man than he is right now. Just seeing him on social media and how he talks about different things, and like he just definitely seems like he's. Again, I don't know him personally, of course, but he definitely seems like he's a lot more open. I mean, I'm sure someone will say, which is, I don't think they're completely wrong, someone might go, the paycheck, though, Matt, which, again, I don't think you're completely wrong, right? I'm pretty sure it's a good paycheck. But I definitely think he's now gone like, it's fun. Picard was fun. I get to have fun.
I would say that he's let his hair down, but, that might not be the best choice of words.
How does he look older with hair than without hair?
Yeah, it's what it is. I always thought that just he was always bald. So whenever I see old photos of him with hair, I'm like, this is wrong.
Yeah,
Patrick Stewart was born bald.
But for some reason it's just like I could see him, maybe not in Logan, but I could see him in as Professor X, right, in the first X-Men movie, and that was obviously years later, right, more than a decade later.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at that, and I'm like, he looks older with hair. He just looks older with hair.
And he doesn't look like he's aged that much. I mean, I remember they put a photo of him recently versus a photo of him when Next Gen started. I'm like, do you drink blood? Right. So there's actually a little bit of a Patrick Stewart as a vampire half joke going around.
Maybe like a 1/4 joke, but
exactly.
But we didn't even mention Commander Worf and how interesting that is in the grand scheme of things, looking at Star Trek as a whole. We should mention that as we kind of wrap things up a little bit.
Yes, he was a relatively late addition to the cast. They decided later on in production that they wanted a Klingon Marine on the ship, and they said that it was a great way to show if the Klingons were the stand-ins for the Russians in the original series, then they wanted to show that we could be friends with them too. That time had passed. It had been some decades. The political climate had changed, and you could see Klingon on the bridge of a Federation ship.
And I think it's also amazing giving a villain, the villain specifically with Q in this case, because I'm not saying Q can never be reasoned with. In fact, again, he technically was within the pilot. So obviously, yes, Q can be reasoned with. Things can change with Q, most likely. But what I'm saying more so is it's good that the villain, at least as of this point, is not some other being, like being as in a humanoid, a mortal being. Because again, in a weird way, it kind of takes away from the idea of like, we're all peaceful and we all love each other. Granted, yes, you do have other civilizations who might come in and attack. That clearly is shown even in the first episode. Like, wait, you're going to form an alliance with the Bandi instead of us? Like, obviously there are other forces to be reckoned with, don't get me wrong. But it is nice to know that things have changed with the Klingons. Because it's like, come on, like you said, John, it's been 75 years. Things have changed. It has to get better. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the whole point of Star Trek, right? We're all coming together.
That an enemy from the past could become a friend in the future.
Yeah. So I think that was nice. How do you feel about there not being any Vulcans on, like, the main deck?
And I feel like it's okay because TOS had Spock. I feel like TNG has essentially Data in that role as the sort of outside commenter on human nature, and it's kind of interesting because Spock struggled with his human half on TOS, and then on TNG you have an analogous character who wants to be human. So it's almost like a struggle in the other direction.
It is, and it's interesting. So I'm not saying that that he's one-to-one Vulcan, but what I mean is, like, I think we saw some Vulcans walking around on the ship.
Yes.
Okay. So so it's not
there were some extras, and then there's a Vulcan doctor who turns up like once or twice.
Cool. So he's not saying, hey, there's no more Vulcans, but definitely when you have Spock in that role for so long, you also don't want anyone to be compared to Spock.
Yeah, and that's why when you got to Voyager and you had Tuvok, that was the first time that there was a Vulcan on the main cast since the original series, so he had big shoes to fill, and in my opinion, did very well. But yeah, so it doesn't really bother me that there were no Vulcans on the bridge of this one, because I do like how each, there's obviously going to be a lot of humans because, play to your audience, but I do like that there's different races and different species in the main crew of each show.
Yeah, and the makeup budget, dear God.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like, how did the actor for Worf survive?
It was, a lot of 4 a.m. Makeup calls, sitting there half asleep in the chair every damn day.
Do you think that's why maybe, at least in this pilot, he wasn't in a lot of it?
I don't know about that, because they did make up for, the makeup for Worf was definitely more extensive than the stuff for Spock, but I don't necessarily know so much that it's that, because he did.
No. I'm not money-wise. I mean, just for his own personal health and well-being.
His own comfort. I don't know. I think, and a lot of times, being going around in makeup and spending the whole day shooting the makeup was part of the job. So I don't necessarily know that they reduced his role for that reason. I think it was really just his position on the show at that point. He said junior officer. And was sort of at that point not even chief of security.
But I'm wondering if that's why they maybe made him a junior officer. Is what I mean, because
maybe.
You know what it is? I don't know. I know like makeup is different than like wearing a full body suit, but I think of it from I mentioned Power Rangers earlier, from the Power Rangers Japanese superheroes perspective of like, we're filming, granted I know they're not filming in a desert, they're all, air conditioned, factory and lots and stuff like that, but still it's like the idea of like, my God, we're either in a desert or even if we're on a lot with AC, it's still like this huge, costume you're wearing. In this case, I know it's makeup a bit different, but still like you sweat. It's a lot. You can sometimes you can't even eat in the makeup.
Oh, it sounds like a nightmare. And I've read some behind the scenes accounts of actors getting claustrophobic with the makeup, and and a lot of them they loved episodes where the character appeared as a human or like an AU where instead of a Klingon he's human, or instead of a Ferengi he's human. That they loved episodes where they could appear without makeup.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a nice little break from it.
Yes, that's the thing. So I'm wondering, at least at first, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but because they definitely did not have him doing as much. Like anytime he wanted to do something, it was like, excuse me, could you just stand off camera here and not do that?
Well, Worf getting shot down is a recurring TNG thing. Everyone tells him to shut up.
Jesus. So anything you want to say about the episode, about the pilot, before we wrap this one up?
Just that, as far as things went, it's kind of interesting to look back, and it may be a different case for you because as of now it's the only episode that you've seen, but I almost invite you after you've watched the whole show to go back and watch the pilot again, just to see how weird everything was in the beginning. But it was interesting.
That's
it was
interesting
to see what they were kicking around. Some of it stuck, some of it didn't. But and for all its problems, I think you could definitely see the beginnings of greatness. Like I said, I could go on and on about how just lousy, especially the early first season was. But even there were definitely signs of greatness.
No, there is definitely sign of promise, and I think on paper, as a concept, just talking to me like one-to-one, saying we need to show them as peaceful beings and wanting to let these creatures live and survive, but also these creatures are in space, but also we don't want to make something that's completely outside the realm of human possibility, because that's all, not only is that weird, but that's also a lot of money. So like, but just telling me like, oh, we need to make them seem compassionate in front of this being who only wants to paint them as creatures of war. And I'm like, great, how do we do that? And then someone goes, space jellyfish. And I'm like, that ain't it, Chief. And someone goes,
exactly.
no, we really think space jellyfish is the thing. And I'm like, is it easier to make it with CG or what? Because I'm being serious, because it could have been anything, but they didn't want to do something out of the realm of possibility, I guess, because it might seem creepy or disturbing. So they wanted it to seem like a peaceful being. And I admit, having a space like God, what's the word? I'm not just a space dog, but like specifically like a space Shiba might seem a little odd. Maybe it'll take someone out of it. So I don't know. Maybe they thought jellyfish being translucent and being colorful and being maybe playful even a little bit, even though one of those things could be very bad for you. Still, I don't know. Like, I don't know what they were trying to go for when they said jellyfish. Maybe because they thought floating through space, it just seemed natural instead of like a cat floating.
You got to figure that the whole space is an ocean metaphor
right.
has always been a big deal, especially on Star Trek, when essentially it's like the Navy in space. Like, that Star Trek definitely leans heavily on the space as an ocean conceit. So it might have been partly that, and or maybe they just want to come up with something like graceful and beautiful and exotic and alien all at once.
Yeah, and they're not completely wrong. I just think that for the end of the episode, despite all of its wonderful parts in it, if I had never seen Star Trek before, I don't know how I would have felt about going, let me tune in next week, I guess.
Let's see what kind of jellyfish they'll find next time. But you know what? And Picard's last line of the episode is, Riker says, "I hope this isn't the way our missions are usually going to go." And then Picard's like, "Oh no, don't worry. Most will be much more interesting." And he's like, let's go see what's out there. So it ended on a really cool note, and he was telling the truth, where like you ain't seen nothing yet. Like,
oh, of course. No, again, as someone who knows what might be coming, and also who like Star Trek, I can go, hell yeah, I'm gonna see, because I don't know, at this point I think it's just I'm more interested, which maybe is something they wanted to do too. I'm more interested in the character drama than I am about what new thing they're going to find, because even though it was a nice message, I don't know, space jellyfish just seems like something people laugh about.
Well, the Star Trek and TNG especially is at its strongest when the space phenomenon and the aliens and the anomalies and the time warps and the nebulas and black holes and whatever, that it's all it's really just there to tell you more about the characters. The important thing isn't the spatial anomaly; it's how the characters react to it and what that tells you about them.
Yes, and I think that's definitely something that will interest me about this show, because the characters definitely have me hooked. They have me hooked, not so much the anomalies at this point. At this point, I think later seasons are going to change some things, but at this point, most definitely. So, we're going to wrap this one up, John?
That's it. That's one for the books.
One for the books. All right. So I want to thank you all so much for listening in. As always, I don't know how you listened in, though. Maybe you looked at our Blog Talk Radio account, blogtalkradio.com/thoseguysonthe-radio. Maybe you went to our iTunes, you searched up Those Guys, and you found us there. Or maybe you found us through our Those Guys on the Radio YouTube channel by searching up Those Guys on the Radio on YouTube. Either way, though, thank you all so much. Tell us what you think about not just this episode. Try not to spoil the entire season if you're in the comment section down below, but tell us what you think about this episode and what you think about us talking about what we've talked about. 1-800-CORRECT-OUR-TRIVIA. Please comment down below. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you all so much again for listening in. Love you. Take care, and tune in next time when we do something completely different. I will probably, if it's a Star Trek Thursday episode, I'll be getting Anthony on to discuss first, and then it was you and I, John, so it will probably be Anthony next. But then it will be John and I talking about the naked man.
Put the kid. You want to make sure you put the kids to bed before you listen to that one.
Seems like it. I don't know. We'll find out next time. So, say goodbye, John.
LLAP, Trekkos.
Good night, everybody. Good night, Trekkies.